Joshua chapter 3. Well, I want to echo what Pastor Will already said, but I do want to say thank you again to the leaders and then also to you for making this weekend a success and bringing the energy. I mentioned it to the high school Sunday school Sunday, but it's without you guys being here, obviously this is your home church, but home youth group, and you guys sitting up front, and you guys taking notes, and you guys worshiping. Of course, our worship team led the worship. Like, without all that happening, it affects the whole atmosphere of the weekend. And so I want to say thank you to everyone that was there, that stepped up, and the welcome team Friday. I had a youth leader come up from another church, said, I've never witnessed anything like this coming to a event at church or anything. So I just really want to thank you, and your attitudes was great and stepped up and really helped lead the week. Appreciate Tim Brady again, wonderful job, always enjoy him, and already looking toward next year with having Kenny with us, and he will be here before we know it. But I want to say, please, 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 if you're planning on going to Arise, get registration back to us as soon as possible, because we need to make plans. It's a little bit different this year with 2 cabins, new cabins we're staying in. So we got to get everything kind of organized and settled out. With all that being said, if you don't have a registration form, I'll try to have more here next week back on that table, and we'll get everybody signed up. All right? Joshua chapter 3, and we'll read in verse 1. Joshua rose early in the morning, and they removed from Shittim and came to Jordan, he and all the children of Israel, and lodged there before they passed over. Jordan is referring to the Jordan River. And it came to pass after 3 days that the officers went through the host, and they commanded the people, saying, when ye see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, and the priests, the Levites, bearing it, then ye shall remove from your place and go after it. Yet there shall be a space between you and it, about 2,000 cubits by measure. Come not near unto it, that ye may know the way by which ye must go, for ye have not passed this way heretofore. And Joshua said unto the people, sanctify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you. I want to take that phrase at the end of that verse and really apply it to our lives and apply it to our youth group. That phrase, that the Lord will do wonders among us. And when you think about your life, when you think about other Christians' life that you look up to, I hope that there's some people in your life that you view as Christians who you would look up to, the way they live, how God uses them. You look at maybe even somebody like a Tim Brady, and you see how God uses his life to impact people. Maybe you look up to him. Maybe you look up to him and Libby and their impact and their ministry. And no doubt there's been people I've looked up to. And then when you take it and you put it on yourself, I don't think that it's prideful in any way to wish or to hope or to pray that God would use your life in that same way. I mean, I remember sitting in youth conferences. I remember sitting in a youth group and going to summer camps and summer conferences and fall retreats. And I would hear people preach, and I would watch their lives be used in a great way. And I would think, even as a 15, 16, 17-year-old, even though I was not always living like I was supposed to in my mind because God was already working on me, I would think, wow, I wish my life could be used like that. Man, how cool would it be if God did that for me? How cool would it be one day if I stood up on stage and told stories about how God worked in my life, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I think that you, as a follower of Jesus, should desire that. And we find the children of Israel in an interesting situation. To get a little bit of context of the 5 verses we just read in Joshua chapter 3, we have to understand a few things. These people, the children of Israel, this group of people, they've wandered in the wilderness for 40 years. Now, it's one thing to get lost on a road trip for a few minutes, but getting lost on a road trip for 40 years, that's a long time. But they've literally been wandering in a desert as nomads for 40 years. And think about why they had to wander. Without going into this whole thing, because we don't have time to do it, their parents, grandparents, disobeyed, right? They didn't have faith. And God said, because of your lack of faith, without going into all of the details, you're not going to enter the promised land, okay? So God made them wander 40 years in the wilderness until that generation of the children of Israel died off. So they literally had to wander around until that generation of the Israelites died off. And so here we are. They've wandered around. They've been out of Egypt. They've been out of bondage. And so you have a new generation of Israelites. And not only do you have a new generation of Israelites, but you have a new leader. Somebody tell me who led the children of Israel out of Egypt. Just shout it out. Moses. Good job, Fabio. Moses led the children of Israel out. Moses couldn't enter the promised land either, so he had to die. And so there's a new generation of Israelites. There's a new leader in Joshua. And think about this. A lot of them probably, when they got delivered from Egypt, was y'all's age or younger, right? So they grew up, they're growing up in this, okay, I'm wandering in this wilderness, what's going on? They're telling the stories of all those things. No doubt they grew up hearing everything God did in the past. They may have not remembered the plagues in Egypt and what God did, but they probably heard the stories. They heard of the parting of the Red Sea. They heard of the 10 Commandments. They heard of the serpent being held up in the wilderness and looking and living. People get bit, and then the only way to be healed is if you look up at the brazen serpent, and then you can be healed, right? They're hearing all these stories. And all of these things their parents or grandparents had told them. And yet they still had things that they had to accomplish for God. They heard about everything God did in Egypt. They heard about the parting of the Red Sea. They heard about the serpent being held up. They heard about the 10 Commandments. They heard all those things. They've heard their stories constantly in their life. But now it's their time. They're a new generation with a new leader, and they still had to get to the promised land. Okay? God still had something for them to accomplish. And they had the Jordan River in front of them. In just a few chapters, they were going to have the walls of Jericho, and they were going to have to accomplish all of this before they entered into the promised land. And I think that we can probably relate to where the children of Israel are in this moment, even in our own lives and in our generation. Because there's no doubt you're growing up, I grew up hearing about all that God has done. You're literally sitting in a building that is testimony to the fact of all that God has done. When you walk across our campus, when you go into the new building, everything on this campus echoes of everything that God has done. And so, just like the children of Israel, we have heard what God has done, and maybe we've even seen glimpses of what God can do. But now, God is raising up another generation with new leadership. And even in the heart of our leadership, it is in it to put another building for the sake of growth for our church, right? To do what the generations before us did, to build, to make room, to expand. I mean, could you imagine if you told the people that was coming to church here in the 80s that you were going to grow out of this sanctuary? They wouldn't have believed you. If you were going to explain to the people coming here in 1982 that you were going to have to build another building and you were going to come to capacity on that building, right? They wouldn't believe you. It's because there has to be an understanding that, yes, God has done things in the past, but if I want God to do things in the future, then I have to feel the weight of the responsibility in the present. And some of you are juniors and seniors. Speaking of juniors and seniors, I need to meet with you right after service really quick, okay? But we must understand that there is more for God to do. Just like the children of Israel, they were facing a river they were going to have to cross and walls that were going to have to fall down. And we are going to have to face rivers of problems and walls of circumstances that are totally out of our control. And so what do we do if we want to see God do wonders among us? Number one, this all ties into this past weekend, and I'll be really quick and we'll be done. Number one, if you want to see God work, you have to pursue His presence Look at verse 3. And they commanded the people, saying, when ye see the ark of the covenant of the Lord and the God. What did the ark of the Lord represent in the Old Testament? It represented the presence of God. Anytime you see the ark of the Lord in the Old Testament, it represented the presence of God. So here's what they're telling the people in this verse. It says, when you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord and the priests and the Levites bearing it, then ye shall remove from your place and go after it. They're saying, when you see the presence of God, this is literally what they're saying, is when you see the presence of God move, that's what you go after. You follow it. You pursue it. There's so many things, as we heard this weekend, that you can pursue. But we must not settle for anything less than the presence of God. I want you to notice really quick the requirements to that in verse 4. It says, yet there shall be a space between you and it about 2,000 cubits. How much is 2,000 cubits? Isn't it interesting that they give them this requirement? It says, I want you to pursue after the presence of God, but I want you to follow it. Do not get anywhere closer than 2,000 cubits. You know how much space that is? Let's just give you a little bit. It's a lot. So here it is. This is the best way. It's about 1,000 yards. That's 10 football fields. So think about what he's saying. I want you to follow that. I want you to pursue that. I want you to go after that. But you cannot get any closer than 10 football fields. So let's just be real for a minute. Obviously, there is a whole caravan that is with the Ark of the Covenant, that is carrying the Ark of the Covenant. The Levites are a part of that. And in that, if you're looking down 10 football fields, what's it going to take to follow something like that? It's going to take patience, it's going to take focus, and it's going to take faith. You know why sometimes we struggle with pursuing the presence of God is because we want to know all the details right now in this moment. We want to be up there. I want to be let me hang out with them and let me lead this party, okay? I want to be in control. But God was teaching them something even in the instructions that he was telling them on how to follow the presence of God. Is I want you to pursue it, but you're going to have to pursue it with focus and you're going to have to pursue it with faith. And guess what was going to get to the circumstances before the people did? The presence of God. Guess who was going to get to the Jordan River before the people did? The presence of God. Guess who was going to get to the enemy before the people did? The presence of God. God was putting in a protection for the people, but it was going to take focus and it was going to take faith and it was going to take a pursuit like they've never understood before. And then not only does it take a pursuit of his presence, but it also takes a pondering of his paths. Look at the end of verse 4. He gives them, hey, you got to stay this far back. He says, come not near unto it, that ye may know the way by which you must go. And listen to this phrase. For you have not passed this way heretofore. Here's what he tells them. He says, you know why you have to pursue the presence of God? Because you've never been this way before. You've never done this before, Joshua. You've never done this before, the children of Israel. You have never seen God work in this matter. You have never seen God work in your life like this before. You've never been this way before. And when you pursue his presence, you also have to ponder his path. You have to trust his path. And it's never going to be comfortable. I don't know about you, but I like going places that I know. I like going places that I've been before. My family likes to go to the same place on vacation every summer because we know the place. We know the restaurants to eat. We know the places to go. We've been there before. But it's a little different when you go to somewhere you've never been before. You don't know. I mean, Google Maps makes it easier, I understand. It's not like it used to be back in the day. But it's something about trusting God and knowing that I've never... And guess what, teenager? You've never been this way before. You've never gone to high school before. You've never graduated, Noah. You've never gone to NC State before. You getting ready to go somewhere you've never been before? Oh, yeah. See, this gets real the older you get. The more you go on in life, the more you understand what this really means. I've never been this way before. And just when you think you've figured it out and you got ministry down, you got family down, it's like, boom, you go into a new season and you feel the weight and the responsibility of life and other people and everything, and you realize, I've never been this way before. I think about Pastor Will. When I was preparing this message, I think about Pastor Will and even how he ended up here. Were there ever a moment in that journey that you were like, wow, I've never been this way before? Huh?
The whole
The whole thing. But what were you pursuing? God. That's the great thing about it, is you pursue the presence of God. He's going to take you where you've never been before. And He gives you the third part of this. I'll give you these verses really quick before I get to the third part. Proverbs 3:6, in all thy ways, I think Tim even mentioned some of these Friday night. In all thy ways acknowledge him, for he shall direct thy what? Paths. A man's heart deviseth his way, but the Lord directeth his steps. There are things in life that you're going to question on how that happened because you devised a different way, but God directs your steps. There's going to be places you end up that you're like, how did I end up here? But it was because it was in God's will, and it wasn't your plan. And you're going to try to figure it out, but you're going to have to trust God because He's doing a work. Psalms 37:23, the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and He delighteth in His way. There's nothing like pursuing God's presence, understanding that He's got a perfect plan. And then finally, number 3, it's kind of where we left off even last Wednesday. But if you're going to watch God do a work in your life, you got to pursue His presence, you got to ponder His paths, and you have to purify your passions. We talked about purging last Wednesday night. This is a little different. Purifying your passions. Look at verse 5. And Joshua said unto the people, sanctify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you. He gave them one more set of instructions before they went out. Pursue God's presence, ponder His paths, and then sanctify yourself. Purify yourself. What does sanctify mean? It means to be set apart. All right? Set apart. Yeah, this is just what comes to mind when I think of something being set apart. If you came to my house for dinner, or let's put it like this, like if I wanted a peanut butter sandwich when I got home, right? Crunchy Peter Pan peanut butter. Yes, that's what you eat. And I just wanted to make me a sandwich, and I toasted my bread. There's plates that I get when it's just me and my family, right? There's plates just for that. There is another section of plates that my wife does not want me to touch for my peanut butter sandwiches. Like she would take high offense if I used them just for a peanut butter sandwich. But if we have people over and we're trying to have nicer things, then those plates, back in the day were called fine china type stuff, but it's just nicer looking, it's prettier and all this stuff. It's set apart for a specific use. Like you don't use it for peanut butter sandwiches. You don't use it for, whatever. You use it for a specific time, a specific place, and specific people, right? So is what Joshua is telling that to the people, is that it's time to set yourself apart because God's getting ready to use your life for a specific purpose in a specific way for a specific time. And if you really want to be used of God, you have to allow God to purify you and set yourself apart. Really quickly, we don't have time to look at all these, but there's a specific cleansing. Psalm 24, 3-4. There's a specific purpose. 1 Peter 2:9. What does the Bible say in 1 Peter 2:9? Very familiar passage. I'll read this to you really quick if I can get it. 1 Peter 2:9 says, but ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a peculiar people. And here's the purpose, that you should show forth the praises of Him who hath called you out of darkness into marvelous light. I have a purpose for my life. It's to reflect Christ and everything He's done for me. And then finally, there's a specific message. I tying these into the example I was using, a specific cleansing. You know what I found out really quickly about those plates that my wife has set apart for a specific purpose is that you don't put those specific plates in the dishwasher. They have to be hand washed, apparently. All right, you make one mistake, and then you got to hear about it for the rest of your life. No, I'm just kidding. Do you know why that has a specific cleansing? Because it has a specific purpose. And then here's the last part.
There's a specific cleansing, a specific purpose, but then there's a specific message. You know what it says when we bring out those plates? Somebody special is coming over. I'm not saying I'm not special, but that's basically what we're saying. Me and the kids aren't good for it, but if you come to my house, you're good enough for it. There's a specific message behind when those plates are put out. There's a specific message that you're supposed to carry because you're set apart as a child of God. We're talking about the children of Israel, but now we're talking about the children of God. And you're a child of God, so you have a specific message. You say, what's that specific message? It's the cross. The specific message is always the cross. And you set that apart. Larry, you got brought up today. You probably didn't even know it. Did you know it? Nope. We were on I'll finish with this and we'll be done. We were on a phone call. Me, Pastor Allen, and Brother Doug was in the car going to lunch, and Pastor Allen got a phone call from Jamie Johnson. And Jamie Johnson, Crossfire Ministries. Of course, Randy Shepard passed away. Crazy, and all that hurricane stuff was supposed to be his funeral, and everything got moved and all that. But Jamie's mom passed away. Was that yesterday morning, maybe, I think? And so we ended up talking. He was on speaker, so all of us were talking. And Larry got brought up because he was talking about trying to get ACC versus Crossfire back together. And he mentioned you back in the day and L-Train. He actually didn't call you Larry. He called you L-Train. And if you didn't know this, L-Train's a legend when it comes to the basketball gyms around Asheville. But anyway, I'm saying all that to say this. I got to thinking after that phone call. We talked for a while and reminisced a little bit. What was the message that Randy Shepard and Jamie Johnson always carried with them? I'm not saying they're perfect people. Larry, you hung out with them more than probably anybody. They're not perfect people, are they? But what message did they carry? It was all about the cross.
It was always Jesus.
Always. No matter where.
McDonald's drive.
Exactly. It was always about the cross. And even in Israel, we're supposed to be on this tourist trip, and Randy is in Bethlehem sharing Jesus with Arabs. And I thought Pastor Ralph was going to have a heart attack. Yeah, Pastor Ralph started turning red and sweating and all those things. But my point in all that, it was always about Jesus. It was always about the cross. And you have that same message to carry. But you know what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to understand, just like the children of Israel did, God has some things for you to do. There's a new generation. And God just hammered this home over this past afternoon. Randy Shepard is no longer here. Think about that witness that's out. March Madness this time of year, he would go to the games and witness to people in the crowd. Witness to the players, witness to the coaches. And my point is this, can you feel that weight? Do you feel the weight that God is raising up another generation and you're it? It's not looking back behind you. It's not looking to the side. It's not looking up here. It's not looking back here to the leaders. You're it. But you're going to have to pursue the presence of God with all of your heart. You're going to have to ponder his paths, God's will or nothing. And you're going to have to be willing to purify your passions. You know what it takes sometimes? It takes some radical things to purify your passions. Can I tell you some radical things that I've seen teenagers do before? I'm talking about getting so radical is you say, I'm changing the way I handle my phone. I'm changing the way I handle my music. And if I can't get some accountability on my phone where my parents know every single text and everything I look at and everything I do, if I can't figure out that app, if I can't figure out a way to do it, then I'm going to go back to a dumb phone. I'm going to go back to a flip phone. Because my purity is that it's worth it. That's radical, and I know it's like our flesh even goes against that a little bit. But there has to be some crazy things if you're truly going to see God work in your life. I promise it's not going to happen by accident. Dear God, we love you. Thank you so much for your word.